The faithful in Mexico celebrated the Feast of Corpus Christi yesterday, and after Mass, there was a special treat for children. Cardinal Carlos Aguilar Retes and other church leaders handed out gifts to children after Mass. Many of the youngsters dressed in traditional clothes in honor of Juan Diego, to whom Our Lady of Guadalupe appeared in the year 1531. For most dioceses in the United States, the Feast of Corpus Christi will be celebrated this weekend. And joining us now to tell us more about the Feast of Corpus Christi is Dr. Edward Sri, theologian and author of the 10th anniversary edition of A Biblical Walk Through the Mass from Ascension Press. Dr. Sri, thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate it. Can you talk to us more about the feast? What are its origins and why it's so important?
I think we need Corpus Christi this year more than ever before, not just because of the lockdowns and so many people being away from the Eucharist, but even more because of these recent studies many are familiar with, showing that so many Catholics, like over 60% of Catholics, don't believe in the real presence of the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus in the Eucharist. And that's a crisis of faith. We need to pray for an outpouring of Eucharistic faith and Eucharistic love. And so this year's Corpus Christi, I think, is so important for us. It goes all the way back to the idea of people having some doubts about the Eucharist, actually, way back in the 13th century. The year was 1263 AD. And there was a German priest that had heard from some theologians that were raising doubts about the real presence. And he himself had his faith a little shaken. He was wondering, and he was on pilgrimage to Rome. He gets close to Rome, to a small little village known as Bolsena. And he's offering the Mass. And as he's holding up the consecrated host, suddenly the host begins dripping blood. And he saw that this was a sign, a Eucharistic miracle. It was the blood of Christ. And he went and told the Pope about it. And the Pope eventually instituted this great feast of Corpus Christi to really celebrate the gift, one of the greatest gifts that Jesus gives us, his very body and blood in the Eucharist.
You know, and you mentioned that a lot of people not believing that the Eucharist is actually the body and blood of Christ. And a recent poll came out saying that. Why do you think that is? You know, and why is there this disconnect? Where is it coming from? And what can be done?
A couple things. First, we live in a secular world that doesn't believe in things that you can't see. But we know as Christians that it's the invisible world that is the most important, right? Right now, there's angels all around us, the Holy Spirit dwelling within us. That's what really matters. So it's hard for them to wrap their mind around Eucharistic faith. But I don't think the problem is simply out there. I think the challenge, the real challenge, is more within the church, is that there are many within the church who've kind of taken on some of this secular mindset. And we've had really bad catechesis on the Eucharist, sadly. Where the faith isn't being passed on to the next generation. It's not being preached as boldly as it can be from the pulpit. People aren't given an encounter with Jesus Christ in the Eucharist. But I will say this, for my years of doing so much ministry, especially with young people, when they come to hear about the real presence, and they have a real encounter with Jesus in the tabernacle, in communion, or in Eucharistic adoration, it's life-changing. I know in the Focus Conference we do every year, you'll see when they bring the monstrance in to this big hall of like 18,000 young people, they all fall on their knees to worship Jesus. It's very moving. We just have to proclaim the truth with great joy and in great clarity so that people can come believe this great reality.
Absolutely. And, you know, we mentioned before the Feast of Corpus Christi was celebrated on Thursday in Mexico. However, most of us will celebrate it this weekend. Can you tell us, you know, why is there that differences and observances? What's the reason behind it?
You know, it's kind of like, I don't know if you remember this. I remember as a kid, Holy Thursday or Ascension Thursday was celebrated on Ascension Thursday. It was a Thursday. And then I remember, I think I was like in college when the U.S. bishops decided to move it to a Sunday to kind of remove like an extra holy day of obligation. So we still celebrate the Ascension, but we're not doing it in the middle of the week where we have a holy day of obligation. And so that's, you know, that I understand there's some countries, I know Italy does the same thing. That's what happened with the Feast of Corpus Christi as well. You know, it was originally on a Thursday, and it'd be the Thursday after Holy Trinity Sunday. And Thursday makes sense because on what day did Jesus give us the gift of his body and blood, it was on Holy Thursday. So it makes sense that we would have a feast celebrating the Eucharist, remembering that day of Thursday. But I know, again, many places around the world have moved it to Sunday. But I know I just got emails from people who've listened to my podcast when I was talking about this, people from Croatia and other places say, no, we still celebrate it on Thursday. And you're like in Mexico and other places. So that origin connects it to Holy Thursday when Jesus instituted the Eucharist. But we still celebrate it. And even here in the United States, we have it. It's going to be just on Sunday for us here.
Well, Dr. Sri, thank you so much for your time today and talking with us. We really appreciate it. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for having me. God bless.